Tuner there. Well, hello everybody. I just wanted to make a video somewhat just commenting on and reviewing this beautiful sounding Carver Banjo that I recently ordered back in kind of the end of April. I just want to give some of my thoughts about the process of building it and what I think about it and whether it's worth it. And I just want to say I think it's really beautiful, both in the look and the sound. Kind of get a closer look there. It's a minstrel kit, and the big difference between this one and some of the older minstrel kits is that this is the hardware kit. I'd wanted a Carver Banjo actually for quite a few years now, but being a poor student for a long time, I just couldn't justify it, and I just played the other banjos that I had. But now with this hardware kit, I could really justify it because, unlike other tack head banjos that I've played, the hardware really lets you get around the difficulty of the humidity, or at least that's what I hope. I haven't really sat with this banjo for months and months. But the fact that I can hand tighten it, I don't have to bring out a hair dryer or a light bulb or however to dehumidify the goatskin head every time it gets saggy. I can really justify this instrument as like a workhorse instrument, something that I could actually bring out to gigs and that sort of thing. I think the level of craftsmanship is pretty good. As Brian at Carver Banjo says, these are kits. They're not going to be perfect. You have to put some work into it, but conversely, every banjo kind of becomes your own. You fall in love with it as you make it. I went a little above and beyond, so I got the dark goatskin head. Could just be colors or aesthetic, although maybe it sounds a bit thicker in my ears. And the Wenge wood pegs, mostly because I knew that I wanted to make it really dark. So when I went through this, I stained this with Watco Danish oil, which is a stain and finish. That has some pros and cons. I really like how it looks. It's really dark. I wanted the whole thing to be kind of one unified dark piece. I think it goes great with the walnut, even though it does make the walnut darker. It's not the natural kind of beauty of the grain. I like how it looks and how it turned out now, but it was very time consuming, and for a long time I was worried that it was going to be tacky on the hands for a long time because the Danish oil, at least on the can, says it's supposed to dry within 10 hours. I would let it go for like 12 hours, put on a new coat. I did 6 coats on this thing, which is a little bit overkill for a lot of people, especially if you're using the true oil. It's a lot easier. And it was pretty tacky by the end, even though I was pretty conservative, didn't use a lot each time. But what I ended up doing was that once I got those 6 coats in 12 hours between each coat, I let it sit for 3 days, took a microfiber cloth, kind of buffed it, and then I'm lucky enough that I have a greenhouse out in the back, and on sunny days I just stick it out there and let it dry, and in about 2 days' time, it was nice. It was really nice and I could work with it. And now that it's been sitting together for a few days as a banjo, it feels great in the hands, and I love that dark look. Some difficulty with that is when you have, I didn't get the fretted version, but I got the fret slots cut. Good benefit of that is that you can see where each note is, right? But you still get those, slides in. But you have to be careful about getting varnish or coating into the slots. So I ended up, if I thought a little bit too much got into one slot, I would take a thin piece of paper and just kind of rub it through that slot as I was coating it, and that seemed to work pretty well for me. As I kind of want to talk about the tips of what I would tell somebody if they wanted to make one of these banjos, and then I'll go into talk about how the banjo is sounding. I got the banjo together. I kind of wanted to avoid glue because some music repair friends of mine suggested, hey, maybe you can, use a minimal amount of glue. So I've not glued this nut. This is just sitting in there under string tension. And that's been totally fine so far. I might decide to glue it later, we'll see. And I also right now because I'm kind of taking everything very, very slowly, I have not filed down any of the string gaps in the nut. Now, I'm using the strings for a standard E tuning, so that makes it so it's easy. I think the action is pretty doable. We'll try to get a good shot of the action here. Some people that might be a bit high. And I might decide later that I want to get that lowered, but I played on a lot of antique instruments, and unless you're really willing to put the work into some antique instruments, they're going to have that high action, and on the nylon strings it's really not that bad. Also, Brian has made other videos about what you can do about if you want to lower the action by moving this screw down here. You can check that video out on his website. Let's see, other things I wanted to say. I ran into really two big problems. One is, once I'd finished varnishing, the pegs didn't fit. And I was kind of racking my brain. I'd put something out on the forum, and Brian was kind enough to be willing to send me a new set of pegs. But I ended up going with a different solution, again, reaching out to an instrument repair friend of mine who suggested that I hand sand the pegs. So the issue I was having was as I put the pegs in, the pegs would barely just crown out the other side of this peg head. And you can see now, very different, right? And ideally, I think a peg head should crown just about a third of its tapered length at the other side. But these were just crowning just on the face, and the hole was not exposed to put the string through. So my friend suggested taking a sheet of 220 grit sandpaper, and you take the peg, you wrap the sandpaper around, and you turn the peg like a key. That will allow you to maintain the taper. The only thing is that you have to be very slow and steady about that process because you don't want to take off too much, and you want to make sure that you're maintaining that taper as you turn it like the key. So I actually did quite a bit of sanding on these to get them to fit through those holes. And at the 220, and then I did one thing of 320 just to kind of buff and make it smooth. And can't even really tell that they've been sanded. Or at least I don't think so. The other issue that I ran into, you might notice that my strings, I followed Brian's instructions to tie the strings. My strings do not look nearly as pretty as Brian's. They did at one point. What happened was I had strung it up, I started playing, and I go to put it down, and I hear this pop, and the leather tailpiece came off. And that made all my strings not look as pretty down at the tailpiece as they ought to. What had happened was I had not screwed in these 2 brass screws enough. Now, I again was kind of going very slow and steady with this build, and I had seen a suggestion by Brian not to over tighten the screws because you don't want to strip them, and you don't want to over tighten them, and you don't want to like dent the wood underneath it on the rim. So I just put it in there so that I thought that it was secure and anchored. Turns out it wasn't. I didn't even notice it at the time, but I had brass, I likely had brass kind of exposed in between the rim and the leather. So you want to make sure that the leather is definitely touching the rim. Otherwise, it could just pull right out. Thankfully, it didn't strip or pull out enough wood material that I couldn't get it back in, and it seems pretty secure now. It's under tension, the tension that it's going to be. I've done a bunch of different tunings too, so it's under that standard E tension. Let's see. Now, another issue I want to talk about with the tuners. Sometimes these peg tuners are difficult, and I had another banjo in my collection that I played a ton that had those peg tuners, and it would drive me crazy. Now I'm used to it. Now I just know, you just get a feel for it over time. But I wanted to show you a little cheat code that I came up with that maybe if there's a newer player who wants to play one of these either fretless instruments or one of these kind of peg head instruments, that'll help them out. I really think with these fretless instruments and these peg head instruments, you want them to be as perfectly in tune in their open position as possible. Otherwise, you're going to be very unhappy with your playing. So, but that can be very difficult because these pegs either like to slip or they like to stick. You know, especially that thickest string likes to stick a lot, and these upper strings like to slip a lot. So if you're dealing with sticking and you Google it, the standard advice is going to be put some candle wax, put some soap, or put some they make the special peg stuff that you can get at music stores. That's great. That'll stop from sticking. And I suggest you put some of that stuff, either soap or wax or the special goop, on every single peg. But another thing that you can do, because even when you get it not to stick, you might not be able to dial in right on the right sense. So what I do is I take these things, you see these little things, they are fine tuners, and just put them underneath the bridge. And sometimes they're difficult to put on. Just make sure that your string is loose as you put them on. But it allows you to fine tune and detune a string just a few cents without having to mess with these peg heads. And that saves you a big headache. Now you might have noticed I don't have one on what would be my G string or my D string, because the strings are actually too thick. But that's fine. I just put them on every string that they can go on because it just saves you time when you're tuning. Another thing too, sometimes you'll find that they vibrate a little bit. You can put a piece of cotton or a makeup pad or a sponge or something down there to stop them from moving back and forth if that ends up bothering you. On this instrument, it doesn't really seem to be bothering me. So I'm leaving it as is because I don't want to cut down on some of that natural resonance on the head. Now, what do I think of the instrument? I've already kind of said, I'll get it back up and get that high D string back in tune. I think it's a really beautiful sounding instrument. I'd wanted a minstrel instrument for a long time, but price really prohibited me, and this kit really allowed me to get that. Now, I wasn't sure how it would sound. I wanted to have a really beefy, plunky sound. And I'd say at least with this particular head and the strings that Brian gave in the kit, it's got that plunk. Now, a lot of times you'll just get a plunk on that low D string and G string, but it's even got a plunk on the B string. It's not cutting at all. It's really good. So I'm kind of over the moon with how this kit sounds, and also how good I think I got it to look. What would I critique? The only thing I would really critique is these 3D printed scroll heads. Hopefully it'll focus in on that. Probably can't tell. So Brian used to make wooden scroll heads. And I'd always wanted a banjo with a scroll head. I thought it would look so cool. But as I got the 3D printed scroll head, I put it on there and I saw the kind of the plasticky look to it. And I had already varnished a test spot here and I saw what color this would be. And I just thought, that just looks like it's out of place. And as I looked closer, I would say it has that classic kind of 3D printed bumpy texture. And I think, though these are kits, these are not $800+ banjos, I still think this banjo just feels too premium to put a plastic piece on there, especially on this kind of beautiful varnished wood. So even though I ordered this, I don't think I'm going to put it on. I kind of ordered it with an open mind, knowing that I might not be totally happy with it, but I'd say, you know, at least for my use case, I wouldn't use it, and if Brian brought back the wooden peg heads, I would actually put it on this instrument. All that said, would I suggest this? Absolutely, I would suggest this. I think that, like I said, the sound is the number one thing that I love from it. The beauty of the instrument is the second thing. But the third thing is the option to have these fret slots cut is really great. Because oftentimes when you're playing a fretless instrument and there's no fret slots cut, it's very difficult, at least for me, to play anything other than melody. Melody, you can find where it is, but playing chords becomes almost impossible, even a very basic D chord. That sounds great because I can see where the notes are. As long as I've measured this and tested it with my ears, I can see where the notes are and get chords, right? And you can even really go up the neck. And go all the way up. Now, that's my fault because I'm not really going up too high is not great. And I would say there is one last kind of nitpick about the fret slots that I would make, which is 1, 2, 3. You can go to a 6 up here. I would like to be able to go up all the way to another octave on this high D string. That's the only nitpick that I have. I think the scoop looks great. Even the parts that you can really tell it's a kit, like those screws, those don't bother me at all because nobody's going to see them. Only I'm going to see them, and people can hear the sound, that plunky sound. So overall, I would highly suggest this. Now, I wouldn't suggest this to learn banjo on, but maybe as your second banjo, this is great, and it opens a world of possibilities of fretless sound. So, you know, thank you, Brian. This has been a real treat for me.